Welcome to the VET S.O.S podcast. Remember, don't drown the sea of transition. Grab the VET S.O.S Lifeline. VET S.O.S is brought to you by the Who You Know Network, and we're excited now to be part of the Heroes Media Group family. Very excited to be partnering with them and everything they got going on there. A lot of great podcasts and information on that site. Make sure you check it out. Today, we're sitting down with Mike Hall, Executive Director of 3 Ranger Foundation. Looking forward to learning more about his organization and the mission they've undertaken. Here with my co-star in a Double Mint gum commercial with my brother Keith. How you doing today?
You can't even get it out without laughing. But they're going to have to rename it Double Mint. As big as I am and as big as you are, it's like triple or quadruple mint at this point. So, but it's good to be here, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I was laughing when I wrote it. I was like, oh, let's see if we can get this one out. And some of the people were probably like, Double Mint, what are they talking about?
Right.
Showing our age. All right, so let's jump into this. We got Mike Hall. He's a retired U.S. Army Command Sergeant Major and a decorated combat veteran with over 34 years of service to the U.S. Army and Special Operations. He served 20 years with the 75th Ranger Regiment. He is the only soldier to have held the senior enlisted position at the Ranger Regiment, the Joint Special Operations Command, and the United States Army Special Operations Command. He retired from active duty in 2008 after 32 years of service, and in 2009 was recalled from retirement to serve as the Sergeant Major and Senior Enlisted Advisor for the International Security Assistance Force, United States Forces Afghanistan North Atlantic Treaty Organization, Afghanistan. Which I can only imagine after 32 years retiring, then being called back. I've heard some people, I've never heard the 32-year mark. That's crazy. After a handful of positions in various organizations, he refocused his efforts in 2018 to spend his time on veterans issues. Sergeant Major Hall is the Executive Director of the 3 Rangers Foundation. He also currently serves as the Honorary Command Sergeant Major of the 75th Ranger Regiment. He has and continues to serve on several nonprofit veteran organization board of directors. Man, fantastic legacy there, Mike. How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, actually. And wife and I are in near Tacoma, Washington. We're up here to do a Ranger for Life transition symposium for 2nd Ranger Battalion, and then she joined me yesterday. So beautiful country out here. Although, as usual, you can't see Mount Rainier because it's all fog smoked in. But that's the Pacific Northwest, the great mystery.
I spent on my way to Korea. I spent a week up there in the Seattle area. I had a buddy who transferred up there to the base, and so we spent a week up there, and it like rained and foggy every day. I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah, I think the climatology will tell you that this area has like 53 clear days a year. But you get people up here, they don't want to leave. You get used to it. It's the environment you live in. It's like living in Arizona. I mean, how could you live in Arizona, but it's the fastest growing city in America? So yeah, you just get used to it, I think.
Oh yeah. And each of us have our own desires, I guess. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, before we jump into 3 Ranger Foundation, let's talk a little bit about your transition or your transitions, because you got called back in. Just sort of tell us how that went. How did transitioning out go, especially at your level?
Yeah, well, I think maybe the first thing to say is, why did I transition out? I think, obviously anybody that joins the military is going to get out at a certain time. It's a matter of figuring out when is the right time. And I'd reached the point where I still felt I was making a contribution, but then again, it takes a lot of energy to when you're responsible for other individuals, and sometimes you just can't gather that energy anymore. And I thought, well, maybe there just wasn't another duty position that I really felt was going to challenge me for the long term. So I just decided there wasn't another duty position that I wanted to take, that I had the energy to put into it. And so I made the decision to transition out of the military. And as a wise man once told me, you don't retire from anything. You have to retire to something. And I think that's definitely true. The vast majority of military personnel, because of the reason we chose to serve in the first place, no matter how long it is. Physically getting out of the military. I think back then that they looked at retired personnel as, you got this figured out. You've been in for a long time. You got this figured out. But what I think we didn't realize is nobody in the Army can tell you how to transition, or to tell you, how to transition or what you're going to do next, because no matter how outstanding your leaders were, they've never gotten out of the Army. So they can give you a lot of great of life advice and stuff like that, but they have never gotten out of the Army. So they really couldn't tell you that. And, that's something that I learned over the years is, I'm certainly not smarter. And when we do talk to folks about transition, it's not what I did during transition. It's what I wished I had done during transition, looking back at the lessons learned. So there really wasn't a great system when I retired in 2009, either medical or wasn't a great emphasis on VA, quite frankly. I mean, some people took advantage of it, some people didn't. I didn't, unfortunately. So, dumb mistake. And I think somewhere along the line, someone said, "It's not about you, it's about your family." And I go, "Huh, it's a good point right there." And I finally got that done. But there really wasn't the system. Shortly after that, the Army implemented this system. A good friend of mine runs the Army Soldier for Life program, and very passionate about it, and understands what it can do. And there's certainly a lot of great programs, but speaking from my aspect, the Army's a big organization, and trying to reach out and touch everybody, and it's hard to do. So, yeah.
Yeah, and, we hear complaints all the time about the TAP program and good, bad, or indifferent. And yeah, I always sort of take the standpoint of the Army's a big organization, and everybody has different needs, and whatever. The TAP program can't meet all those needs.
That's right.
It's a generic baseline. I consider it like the base, the 60-60-60 on the old APFT, right?
Yeah.
It gets you the baseline, and there's a lot of great information in there, but you also got to go back to the book occasionally and look at it, But
Yeah.
um,
Yeah,
no,
you definitely got to own your transition. Someone told me that a long time ago after we were doing this. He goes, when you talk to these guys, make sure you tell them they got to own their transition. I thought, yeah, that is a blinding flash of the obvious, because there are a lot of great programs, but you got to own it.
Yep.
And I mean, but quite frankly, you do need someone to help you with it. Someone who's already been out to say, ask them about this, ask them about this, ask them about that, because it's so big. One of the problems with it, there are so many great programs. I mean, how do you sit down and figure out what they are? And the counselors at the installations, I mean, they really don't have the time to do that. They want to, in most cases. They all do it because they want to help soldiers transition. So, have an organization that says, I know your background. I have time to sit down and have a one-on-one and talk with you. And I think I know what you want to do. So, do this, ask about this program, get involved in this program. That's what's one of the big tenets of what we try to do at the Three Rangers Foundation. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but.
Well, that's fantastic, though, because honestly, that's why we started the podcast, was to get the organizations out there so people could learn about them. Because we don't hear about a lot of them, and there's so many great ones out there. And I don't know what your thoughts are, Keith, but Mike's ahead of his time as far as I'm concerned. He's got a ton of wisdom there. He's been dropping about owning your transition, and I mean,
he's dropping all the key phrases. Yeah, and his story, Mike, your story reminds me. We even interviewed and had a chat with former retired Sergeant Major of the Army, Grinston, recently. And even he was like, you'd think the Sergeant Major of the Army would have some sort of glide path to get out. He was like, nope, I turned my CIF in and it was like, bye. One day I was just out,
Yeah.
So it's just crazy that it happens to doggone near everybody at every rank and pillar. So tell us, how did Three Ranger Foundation come to be? Like, what was this origin story, and what does it do?
Yeah, the organization was actually formed in 2014. It was formed by 3 former members of the 3rd Ranger Battalion who all were in B Company 375 in Mogadishu. They all happened to get out about the same time, and they all had different experiences with transition and getting out of the Army, and finding out what drove them once they got out. So they started this. They saw a need out there, so they sort of started an organization that was for all vets to do everything they could do for any vet, and not really focused on anything specifically. A lot of local problem issues, but and there was wasn't not a lot of infrastructure like a lot of nonprofits. You try to do a lot of great things, but everybody's volunteer. Everybody's got other things to do. So around 2018, I decided to retire from the workforce, I guess you call it. I call it retired, because we were financially secure, and it was about that time. And I always wanted to do something to give back to veterans, because I just saw the gaps out there on some of the systems and really society, and how do you get at it, and looked at a lot of nonprofits, and I think there's 46,000, I could be exaggerating, veteran organizations out there, and and a lot of them do great things, and a lot of them do things that other people do, and a lot of them do things that's like, okay, what's the long-term effects of this? And okay, you're doing good things, but what are your long-term effects? And so I thought, maybe I'll just take, when they asked me to become the executive director of the Three Rangers Foundation, I said, yeah, I'd like to do that. But what I'd like to do is focus it only on the 75th Ranger Regiment and their transition programs and their veterans programs. And some people look at that, well, that's a little selfish. I mean, you're a little tribe. And I mean, that's my background. So that's why I decided to do it. But I decided, I've only got so much time. I've only got so much bandwidth. And it's the old saying, do you want to do 2 or 3 things great, or do you want to do 50 things mediocre? And I decided I wanted to do 2 or 3 things great. And whether they're great or not, I don't know. But that's what I focus my time on, just on that specific organization. And again, it's not about tribal. It's not, you're not worthy. It's, that's where I've decided to, I've only got so much time. It is strictly volunteer work. My wife definitely says it's work, but, so that's why we decided to do that. So it was about that same time as the honorary sergeant major of the regiment, the regimental commander and regimental sergeant major called me in. He goes, we've got to figure out how to recruit and retain the newest generation of soldiers. I mean, the Army, the military recruits what society produces, and how do they keep up with that? And so we sat down, and and one of us said, and I don't know who it was, but great organizations, if you know that if you want to recruit and retain, I think it's a GE model, but great organizations, if you want to recruit and retain the right kind of people for your organizations, you're going to have to invest in them. And then the caveat to that is, if you invest in them, some of them are going to leave, of course. And that's why I think the Army has always been afraid of, investing into the soldiers, not realizing that everybody gets out of the Army. If you truly, truly take care of them while they're in the Army, I mean, maybe they'll stick around because they see I'm in an organization that treats me right. I'm in an organization that is going to set me up for success when I transition out of the Army, whenever that is. And, a lot of guys get out, and it's not the right time to get out. It's the old saying, your platoon sergeant calls you in and said, "Are you going to re-enlist?" And you go, "No." And he goes, "What's your plan?" And you go, "I don't know what my plan." And he goes, "I'll give you a plan then. You better stay in the Army because you don't have a plan." And that's how, so many people get out and don't have a plan. So, that's the basis of it. It took us about a year and a half to sort of figure out what this kind of looked like, but it's the Ranger Regiment's transition program, but it's really a transition and veterans program. And they, we try to get at what we call the big 5 of transition, to educate Rangers, not only about what they're going to do when they get out, but, how they can be more successful while they're in. I mean, it's one of our tenets is, you should get your education while you're in the Army, let other people pay for your education. You should definitely understand and financial wellness and start saving for the future now, not after you get out, or not when you're 55. You got to understand, the physical and mental wellness and how important that is, because it's so much of you while you're in the service. And if you let that go once you get out, that's a big deal. And then understanding, what it really is like out there nowadays, and the importance of networking and having people to talk to understand what you're getting into, understanding what VA benefits are and how that's a big part of your financial life once you get out. So, yeah, I'll shut up and talk too much.
That's why you're here, is to talk.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious. So it's exclusive to the Rangers, which I totally get. Right, you only have so much bandwidth. I totally can respect that. Is it just people in the regiment that are wearing the regimental scroll, or anybody, any tab wearer, can they leverage this program?
Again, just necking it down to anyone that has ever served in the Ranger Regiment. We we do a lot of, the majority of the guys we work with are guys that are active duty. But we do a lot of, former Rangers. We do a lot of, most people don't stay in the Rangers their entire career. So we do a lot of guys that have gone on to other units, and we assist, we assist them all also. And of course,
Nice.
and that includes, we've always had a strong relationship with our Air Force brothers, our TAC Ps and those kind of guys, augmentees that work with us, especially when we're deployed, intel folks and logisticians, and, so anybody that's affiliated with the organization also. But again, it's a matter of bandwidth, and that's sort of just where I drew the line. We work with, it's the Three Rangers Foundation. I guess we coordinate the Ranger for Life program as Honorary Sergeant Major. I guess I sort of kind of run it, but there are really about 19 other Ranger associations out there that touch that. Some are affiliated strictly with the 75th Ranger Regiment. Most are affiliated with all Rangers, and we all work together pretty good. Because we have all come to a couple of years ago. We had several meetings where we all got together, and they said, why are we here? Are we here for our organization, or are we here to help our fellow Rangers? And I think that attitude has gone across, all the organizations. So, every organization does something a little bit different. I mean, there's a lot of organizations that do things we don't do, and a Ranger has some kind of issue and needs help with something, and we say, hey, go talk to Sue Sponte, go talk to 75th Ranger Association, go talk to the U.S. Army Ranger Association, go talk to the Lead the Way Fund. It depends on what their issue is. We do a lot of that, and I guess we're probably the central clearinghouse for that. It's not that we task anybody. It's just, hey, this organization does this and this organization does that. And there is some overlap, but there's very little that, okay, we both do this and I do it better than you. No, it's not that at all. So there's a pretty, scholarships is a big thing on how that's shared to the different organizations. So everybody works together for what's become called the Ranger for Life, the Ranger for Life program. So we all try to work together very, very well.
That's fantastic. And Keith, I before you ask your question, I just want to point out that he did say intelligence. He said intel people. You like to knock me as an intel guy. I just want to throw that out there. He did include us.
He did.
We actually have we're affiliated with a couple strong groups that are, intelligence focused, because it's always been a big part of the regiment. Anyways, it's one of its big four capabilities that sort of keeps it relevant, or one of the reasons the Army keeps it around is the regiment's very, very good at that. So yeah, we're affiliated with a couple of very good, strong organizations, and it's a strong group of guys. Their signal chat is probably one of the most tightest that we have, quite frankly. You got a question about an intel guy, you can call a couple guys and they can tell you everything you need to know. But yeah, of course they're intel guys. They know these things, but yeah.
Right.
This is now my favorite episode, Keith.
Oh, I know.
Like intel guy getting all this credit, man.
So before Shawn's heads get too big, you touched on something just a little while ago that I'm this almost like I envisioned like a model of transition starts the day you get in the military, the day you come into the Army. And so I love that. I'm assuming you all are kind of doing that. So following that model, which is amazing. So how far out, I guess I should ask, can these Rangers sign up for the program and start to gain from the benefits?
Yeah, there's really no formal sign up process, but to get into the Ranger Regiment, you have to go through an assessment and selection program. It's called RAS, the Ranger Assessment Sucks. Anything that has to do with the Ranger Regiment has an R in front of it. Well, we all joke about that. I'm sure other people outside the organization joke that, but you have to go through an assessment and selection process. And during that process, you will be briefed on the Ranger for Life program. The brief through the E1 through E4, RAS 1, is, okay, this program is out there. Here's let me introduce you to Ned or to Will or to Tony. These are the Ranger for Life counselors that support your organization, and they get, a brief overview and of what's available to them. And then the NCOs and officers that go through RAS 2, they get a little bit more in-depth brief. So that it does start there, but think back when you first joined, stuff goes in one ear and out the other. everybody realized that, so you don't spend a lot of time on that. The regimental memorandum for record states that when you're within 2 years of retirement eligibility, which basically means 18 months or 18 years, or, within your 18 months of your ETS, you're supposed to go see the Ranger for Life counselor at your battalion. We have counselors at each of the battalion locations. Of course, 1st Battalion's in Hunter Army Airfield, 2nd Battalion up here at Joint Base Lewis McChord, and then the other 3 battalions and headquarters at Fort Benning. So at 18 months, they're supposed to go see the Ranger for Life counselor, and the Ranger for Life counselor will sit down and ask them a few questions. 1, have you seen your retention NCO? 2, have you seen the education counselor? 3, have you seen the Care Coalition, which is a SOCOM transition program for wounded vets? And then we'll say, okay, tell me about your plan, tell me about your family. When you transition out of the Army, where do you want to live? What do you want to do? And we go through a checklist of things. And then we'll go through the big 5 of transition, where they stand on finances, talk about insurance, let them know about VA benefits, and see where they stand about education. The Ranger Regiment has education counselors down at each of the Ranger battalions, and it's actually part of the professional development model. I mean, if you want to become a squad leader, you got to have you have to go get X amount of college. You can't come in with a master's degree and say you've checked that block. You've got to continue to further your education if you want to be a squad leader, platoon sergeant, first sergeant. So, the Army's always said education's important, but the assets were there, but they never really, okay, you got to get your education if you want to get promoted. Okay, you got to do your squad leader time if you want to get promoted. You didn't have time to do them both. I mean, some organizations were better at that than others. So, but it's part of the professional development model to force you to get that education. And again, it's sort of, hey, we're going to give you your education. Why don't you hang around with us? So yeah, it's a little bit of retention, but it also shows, hey, we know you're going to get out sometime, and education's important. And at that point, we'll give them an individual transition plan, which is built on the Soldier for Life TAP program. I mean, that's what they're told is, you got to do the basics. You got to do this. Here's how to take advantage of it. And here's some of the other tips of the trade that all us guys that have gotten out, that you need to know. So we'll give them an individual transition plan. We don't give them a timeline. We give them a sync matrix, because it doesn't work on a timeline. I mean, you've got, as you make the decision to get out, you've got to figure out how to transition, which is time consuming. You got to figure out what you're going to do after your transition, which is time consuming. You still got responsibilities to the Army, which is time consuming. You still got family and friends and things you want to do, which is time consuming. So that's a sync matrix. It's not a timeline. And, timelines don't work because, especially if you're in the military, I mean, you have no control over that sometimes. And so we make them make out their transition plan and brief it to the chain of command, because if you brief it to your chain of command, they're going to help you reach your goals, because they've got a mission and they've only got so many resources. So we give them an individual transition plan. This all happens at 18 months. And we chose 18 months because, if you want to go to federal work, I mean, it's an 18-month process, especially if you got to go through academy. What are the prerequisites? What do I got to do before then? So we want guys to walk out of the service and walk into whatever they want to do. A large majority of guys get out and go to college and go to graduate programs because they're getting their bachelor's degree while they're in the Army. And that's an 18-month process because, I mean, it goes by semesters. I mean, it's a timing issue, and you don't want to have big gaps in there. And it's a process to get in there. But again, so that's sort of where the 18 months comes from. 30 days later, we ask them to come back in. We ask them to bring their spouse or significant other because transition is a family event, and the entire family needs to be involved in that. And most military people really don't do that. We don't for a lot of reasons, but we don't. And then every 4 months we specifically check in with them until transition. And also at that point is we emphasize figure out what you want to live, where you want to live, and figure out what you want to do, and it'll work out. But, we ask them, what do you want to do? And, very few people really understand what they want to do. Some of them think they know what they want to do, but they don't understand really what that is. So, I want to be an FBI agent. Oh, that's great. Well, what do you know about the FBI? People don't, so what we'll do is we'll introduce them to a bunch of former unit members that are FBI agents. And they can talk to those guys, and they'll get the unvarnished truth about what the FBI is about. If you talk to a recruiter, I mean, recruiters get paid to recruit. I'm not talking bad about recruiters, but I mean, they get paid to recruit. But if you talk to a Ranger buddy, he's going to give you the straight scoop, and find that out. But we'll also, since they're interested in the FBI, we'll also introduce them to DEA agents and Secret Service agents or guys in the intel field, or things that are, guys that do security contracting or private security, everything in that kind of field. Because you don't know what you don't know. And he wants to be an FBI agent, but then he talks to the Secret Service and goes, heck, that's what I wanted to do in the first place. I had no idea that the Secret Service does this or does that. I had no idea. And that's really what I want to do. And then, of course, you're going to talk to these guys, and nobody knows the secret to getting hired, but they've all been hired. So they know what success looks like and say, listen, here's my resume, use it, here's the kind of questions they asked me during the interview process. Here's what we think that they're looking for on the resume. Here's, talking to some other people, and this is what we all have in common. So, if you're this kind of guy, you got a really good chance of getting hired. And oh, by the way, yeah, you can negotiate your salary. Yeah, you can negotiate, where you're going to get stationed. Some things that you just don't realize, and so they're set up for success. And it's the same thing with college. I mean, most of us had, we finished high school and we kept our GPAs above 2.0 so we could play football. We didn't care about our GPAs. Now we want to go to Harvard, and Harvard says you have to have a 3.5 GPA, and you go, oh, mine's 2.2. And, but you talk to guys that are in Harvard, and, most of our guys didn't have that. But, listen, yeah, I didn't have that either. But, you took this course, you took that course, you did this, you did that, and you put it in your packet, and you'll be just like us. You'll be accepted into Harvard. And of course, any service member is going to do good in school, because school, more than anything else, is time management. And whether you like it or not, you learn that in the military. So, everybody that goes to, just about everybody that goes to school is very, very successful because they learn how to time management. They were 2.2 GPA in high school, and now they're 3.8 at Harvard. So, and then we stay up with them. And then, of course, a lot of, veterans want to change, do something different. Doges come in, so we're dealing with a lot of guys that were in government work there. So we deal with a lot of veterans also. We run a Ranger for Life symposium once every 9 months at each of the battalions, and it goes over the big five during day one, and then day two we have an industry day. It's not a jobs fair. We bring in a bunch of former unit members, usually about 30 of them, and we put them in a round robin, and the guys go and talk to them. Again, it's the same thing. It's a mentor program, but it's not about getting hired. It's about, I'm a fireman. This is why I'm a fireman. I'm in cybersecurity. This is why I'm in cybersecurity. I work for a nonprofit. This is why I'm work for a nonprofit. And then, then it can develop relationships later. But, networking is about relationships. It's not about who you know. It's about who you get to know. I think 20 years ago it was about who you know, but maybe not. I mean, I grew up in Ohio. Everybody graduated high school and you went to work for Ford Motor Company. If you had a relative that worked at Ford Motor Company that could get you in. So relationships have always been important.
Absolutely.
There's only one phrase that comes to mind, Keith, and that's Rangers lead the way. I mean, this is an amazing setup and something that I wish we could do service wide, but man, fantastic, Mike. Just unbelievable. You guys check every single box and then some for how helping somebody go through the transition the right way. That's just absolutely amazing.
It works because it's the Ranger Regiment's program. I mean, obviously they can't run it. Nonprofits have to run it for them. But, the support of the chain of command is what makes it work. And of course, it makes it work better for the Army too, because, they are going to go to Soldier for Life and TAP like they're supposed to in the first time. And of course, the chain of command sees the benefit because they realize, hey, yeah, I'm going to get out of the Army someday too, so they can learn along the way. But of course, it's unique because it's not a closed culture, but it's, it is sort of kind of closed. And again, the big part of it is a mentorship program, and that, everybody has that common bond. Everybody has gone through RIP or RASP or whatever, and has that common bond. And does it work on a bigger scale? It sort of, kind of, it could, but it'd be a tremendous investment.
Yeah.
But if you want to recruit if you want to recruit and retain the right kind of people, you got to invest in them. And it's usually a big investment, and you don't lose as many people as you keep more people, you keep more people on the fence. People are going to get out, People are going to stay in. It's the on the fence people, the good people that
Yeah.
you want to keep that you're really after. And I think this program does help with that.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, y'all are doing amazing work. And unfortunately we're at time. But before we go, first of all, I wish we could, Shawn, can you splice this video, put me in the beginning saying, hey, even if you're not a Ranger, you need to listen to this episode, because I mean, Mike dropped so many truth bombs. It is unreal. But all that to say, for all of our Rangers out there, especially Mike, how can folks get in touch with you? How can folks get in touch with the program, and either support the program or take advantage of its benefits?
Yeah, it's threerangersfoundation.org on the website. You can learn a little bit about what we do. I mean, we have a fairly, we have a lot of community partners and what we call Ranger friendly career organizations that are truly Ranger friendly. Everybody wants to hire veterans, but nobody does. Look at the job descriptions and see why veterans self-select out. It's not an evil thing. It's life. I mean, companies are looking for this kind of experience. And 11 Bravo Infantryman doesn't have that experience. He can do the job, but his resume is never going to see the light of day because it just won't match the job requirements. Again, it's not an evil thing. It's not a bad thing. It's life. It's business. But if you know somebody, you could say, hey, I was in the Army. I see this job description. I don't meet all the prerequisites. I was an airborne Ranger. I was an infantryman. I can do this job. You can talk to somebody and talk to a hiring manager and say, yeah, you don't meet all the prerequisites, but we're going to hire you.
100%. Yeah. Speaking truth, brother. That's awesome stuff. Well, Mike, thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about the organization. It's been an amazing episode. Again, tons of truth bombs. Loved everything you had to put out there. And to everybody listening in, thank you so much for joining us today on behalf of the entire VET S.O.S family. We're growing and spreading its wings. You can follow us on all the social media platforms. Make sure to check out all 4 of our shows, and to follow and subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast from. We're on YouTube, Reach Across America Radio, Heroes Media Group now, and all those other podcast platforms out there. And as always, folks, remember, don't drown in the sea of transition. Grab the VET S.O.S Lifeline.